So this is a review for Tweety and Sour, and with me today to eat some sweet and sour, get it? Here's my good friend S.C. MacPeter. Say hi.
Sweet and sour.
Well, it will definitely taste better than catgut, which is a reference I'm going to point out very soon. A few bits of info to get underway. So as mentioned, this is a review for Tweety and Sour, released on the 24th of March 1956. It's the 765th in the series, and it's directed by Friz Freleng. So far, there's no physical media release of this restoration. It's only been on streaming, which seems to be on and off a lot of places, hence why I don't recommend streaming when it comes to animated shorts. You're better off getting physical media. But this should be a shoo-in for a Collector's Vault volume, and if it does get released in these sets, I'll update the description below with whatever set you can get it on.
Yeah, this is a pretty good entry for this period.
Yeah, it's very safe, like there's nothing offensive in it.
It seems to be remembered pretty well for a few reasons.
But in case you haven't seen this one, story-wise, it's really just your stock standard Sylvester and Tweety, where Granny needs to go out, she catches Sylvester in the act of trying to get Tweety, threatens him that if anything happens to Tweety, he'll be sent to the Violin factory, which again, a reference I'll go through in a moment. And later on, we see this other cat who has an actual eye patch this time round.
Yeah, this cat is sort of a redesign of the cat in Putty Tat Trouble, this time being used as an alley cat.
And this time around, we see a bit of a tit-for-tat thing as Sylvester's trying to help Tweety. And again, a lot of this is actually reminiscent of what will come later on in the Sylvester and Tweety mysteries, where it'll be like a love-hate relationship between Sylvester and Tweety. But sure enough, that's all it is to this one. So yeah, there's nothing deep story-wise, nor does it have to be.
This one is one I'm surprised they didn't do sort of this story earlier of Sylvester having to actually rescue Tweety rather than it coming off that way like in Catty Cornered. And this one, it's actually a pretty good story for what it is, and I think most people remember this cartoon as the one with the violin string factory.
The first bit of trivia, I will get this one out of the way. This is not the first time we see Granny in the new redesign, voiced by Foray. That would be in Red Riding Hoodwinked, but here it's the first time you see the redesign of Granny used in its traditional sense, if you will, like in the proper Sylvester and Tweety short, where there's no other major characters, like in Red Riding Hoodwinked, where it was just flooded with so many characters. It's the first time you see that here, and she acts a lot more like a granny as opposed to a really angry bus driver.
And they give her the pupils in this one, which I think she looked a little cuter without them, honestly.
So the whole catgut thing, okay, so the violin factory threat, that all comes from the fact that violin strings used to be made from what's known as catgut. So you would assume, oh yeah, they made it from, I guess, feral cats or something, but no, catgut is something that comes from sheep's or goats. They're intestines, that's what they use to make the strings. They don't do that these days, of course, it's all artificial, but Granny doesn't seem to realize that it's just a name, catgut. And I guess Sylvester doesn't realize too, hence why he's so scared about it. But yeah, look, with this one, see, I hadn't seen this before, really. I may have seen it in the past. I dare say it's probably my first time encountering it. And this is where we get to a point where, because I've seen all of them up to this point, I have to judge this thing on its own merits, because a lot of what we see here, it's done a million times before. Some of these gags are even repeat of ideas from before. They're not direct lifts, but they're just similar ideas. But I have to judge this thing where if someone watches this one for the first time as a Sylvester and Tweety short, I have to judge it on that merit. And for that part, it's pretty good, I think.
There's nothing very new here in terms of the comedy, but Foster and Freleng, they still execute it very well. They give it a fresh story at least, and since they're still good at executing comedy, you can forgive the fact that they're recycling old ideas, especially if you're not going to watch these in binge. And it was probably never seen in that sort of way, at least for another 10 or so years. So thankfully, the idea here is still very fresh.
Exactly. And yeah, but back in the day, in case people don't realize, these were not shown on TV at first. These were made for the theater or the cinema, depending on what part of the world you're in. And once one short was shown, that was it. It wouldn't be seen again. But a few years after this release, they would bring out the Bugs Bunny show. And then later on, Saturday mornings and so on. So these would then start to be shown more often on television. But back then, they would make a short, they would show it, and that was it. There was a whole generation that would watch this all the time, as opposed to people when they first came out, they might see it once and maybe never again, unless they watched it a second time during its original run. At this point, repeating ideas was not seen as really a bad thing, because a lot of these ideas people would not have obsessively known about them, like we do all these decades later. So yeah, we're going to judge this on its own merit, and Yeah, I reckon we go through this short from start to finish and discuss if this one is a higher entry within the Sylvester and Tweety series.
I like the framing of this first shot. We open up with scene outside the house. We have the pink outline. It sets up a very nice, warm feeling.
I'm noticing a lot of pink in this one, especially even during the opening titles where it's all pink and we hear Ain't She Sweet, because why not? That seems to be one of Tweety's themes, although it would be nice if they still continue to use the Tweety's My Name theme. That would be nice, but yeah, it's fine for what it is.
Don't worry, Tweety. Granny will lock the door so that bad old pussycat can't get you while I'm gone.
But you're right, I like the opening framing here. In fact, a lot of the layouts in this one are very basic. They seem to be very side-on. There are a few different angles here and there, but there's definitely a lot of simple layouts in this one, and part of that would be probably due to budget.
Yeah, this one, you can feel the budget in this, but on the bright side, Holy Pratt has some nice color design in this cartoon, and when there is animation, it's usually very well handled. The three animators are still doing a lot of great work. And we see at least one cost-cutting solution almost very quickly. When Sylvester first goes inside the house after getting the key, we only see the chair move as a still cell being dragged.
You can definitely see the budgetary things going down, but at least they try and mix it up a little bit, especially with the key where Granny's locking the door. She's obviously going out somewhere, I don't know. Maybe she's getting a pension, I don't know, but she's going somewhere at least. But this first gag just killed me when I first saw it. She puts the key under the mat, which is clearly flat in one shot, and then the next shot we see Sylvester...
I guess he cut a hole in the porch. I love that the size of the mat, it changes. It's a lot larger.
Yeah, and then goes back to its original size in the following shot, which obviously reused the same background as before. It's ridiculous. I love it, though. So we see that Sylvester enters and ends up talking to Tweety, of course. I just love the reaction of Tweety here. And as you said to me before we recorded, Tweety's very naive in this one.
You're a darn tootin' buster. You did see a pussy cat.
Help! Granny, help! The pussycat's got me! Help! Granny! Bye-bye, Tweety.
And again, we get this hilarious shot of Sylvester and Granny waving, and Granny realizing what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. A wonderful shot. And I like the way Sylvester's drawn in that shot, too, when he's waving.
You barely can register that he's actually waving, but it's really funny.
We see that Granny's realized, oh, wait a minute. Why is Sylvester in the house? And yeah, we got that wonderful shot of Sylvester being choked.
Yeah, it's a great scene by Art Davis, but you know what really is funny to me? It's the fact that she is locking the house with a spare key that she leaves under the mat rather than bringing with her. Is that something that was common back then in farm areas? That just seems odd to me in these days where we're very considerate of our security.
You see that a lot, where the key's underneath the mat. And since everyone was doing it, why wouldn't you as a burglar just look under the mat and enter the home without breaking in? If anyone has any more details about that, and did you used to do it growing up or whatever, definitely let me know in the comments, because I am curious about it. We see Granny starting to really tell off Sylvester for eating Tweety, but the animation of Sylvester just slinking, just looking ashamed of himself, which clearly is acting here, of course, but he's just like a normal cat. When you tell off a cat, just slinking away. He's slinking into his chair, looking just all afraid.
Yeah, I wonder if Virgil Ross was a cat owner or a cat person, because he's really good with very well-observed animal behavior in these cartoons. He always seems just to understand how an animal would actually behave in that sense.
Yeah, it does really well here.
Take my eyes off you for a second. Let me warn you, Sylvester, for absolutely the last time, if there's one little feather, just one little feather harmed of this bird, I'm going to sell you to the Violin string factory. Remember?
And Granny threatens him with the violin factory. And I like the fact that she even does the funeral march. That would have been interesting to see in the recording booth, June Foray doing that recording march.
It's a really funny performance. And we can just tell how angry Granny is here. And they still keep her as eccentric as possible. I love that little layout of Sylvester backing into the corner, because it really emphasizes how small Sylvester is. He's really threatened by that.
And then he just changes tune where he's being a cat. He's like, okay, time for play acting is over. Now here's my chance to actually get Tweety. And I like that. He ended up threatening Sylvester as well, doing the whole funeral marches.
That's great Art Davis acting there, I believe. Sylvester about to go pounce on Tweety again and then immediately backing into the corner. And then, of course, the cat notices. And this cat is really fully animated, at least when we see him on screen. Like, there's a contrast here with the softer colors and the stylization, and then the full animation of these characters I found intriguing. I don't know how to describe it, but there's just something intriguing about seeing these very full characters atop these backgrounds.
I just always found it fascinating when these shorts went into the 50s, the backgrounds became really stylized, and you have side characters drawn very simplified, and yet you still got these 40 designs characters, or even sometimes 30s design characters, like in the case of Porky, just in amongst all of that. It's always a great contrast.
And we have another low-budget solution from Freleng here with animating this cat, where we actually only see his tail after he crosses the fence.
Freleng really was the master of less is more, because we see what we need to see. The cat's approaching. Why animate the whole thing? That is a fair point. But can we just discuss the design of this cat? I mean, this cat must have gone through some really hard times, given that it's got an eye patch.
Yeah, it's really nice. Again, Freleng, low budget. He's mostly just working within lower budgets. He's reusing the design, but just giving it a slight update with the eye patch, which I don't even think a few years later they would have gone with such detail on the character for an alley cat. And I love this whole setups of the conflict again. We get more lower budget things. We first see Tweety scolding Sylvester again. We see the arm ready to grab Tweety, and then we only hear it off screen while Sylvester is in two poses, really. Then we go back and just see him gone. Sylvester is freaking out again and knows he has to take action to get back Tweety.
Just his expressions is fantastic. And as you say, it's a great low-budget solution to it, and you just hear the action. And I would imagine that Hanna-Barbera would have even been taking some notes for this.
I think, actually, they were taking some notes from Hanna-Barbera when doing this, because there's quite a few Tom and Jerry's that would have been done before this. Jerry is the subject of attention of two different animals, two cats, or in Pet Peeve, it's Spike and Tom trying to both catch him. It's sort of like one of those cartoons, suffering cats and mouse in the house. Except here, there's the brilliant twist of Sylvester actually has to care about Tweety whether or not he really wants to.
If anything happens to me, Sylvester, it'll be too bad for you. You'll be made into violin strings.
And again, we've seen so many of these Sylvester and Tweeties by this point. At least it's something new, even if the next bit here with the whole tit-for-tat thing between the two cats trying to get Tweety, we've seen it.
Listen, cat, hands off of this bird.
But again, I have to be fair to this because it could be someone's first Sylvester and Tweety. So in that sense, it does its job pretty well, as we see a wonderful showcase of Friz's timing, especially to Milt Franklin's music.
And the great thing here is that even if nothing's terribly new, we still have a lot of good energy. And again, great timing. Tweety doesn't seem to understand what's going on. And I really love some of these shots by Art Davis. Art Davis, as Sylvester is scolding the other cat, asking him if he wants him to get sent to the violin string factory, and he's just immediately hit in the face.
You want me to be made into violin strings?
And there's also the fact that there's a few dry brush effects as well. And that's, again, another little shortcut. The effect is pretty good, where the other cat grabs Sylvester by the tail and pretty much drags him out. And you can see a few shots of just some dry brush. And we see a whole bunch of scenes involving Tweety trying to be rescued and some wonderful freeze frame shots, like the iron being hit onto Sylvester's face, the anvil being hit onto the other cat. And we even get the wonderful late reaction where you got a few mallet shots and then the third one misses and it ends up getting him. So, yeah, it's fun.
Great sequence by Jerry Chinicki of the cats hitting each other with the mallet that I like.
And it's got the nice little rule of three. The other cat gets hit, then Sylvester gets hit, but then when the other cat just approaches, he realizes, oh, I'm not going to get hit by this mallet. And then he, of course, ends up getting hit from underneath. Wonderful bit of animation there.
Yeah, it's very well done. And we go to the chicken coop, which reminded me of Foul Weather instantly.
Yes, it reminded me of that as well. Although Foul Weather takes that whole idea of the chickens and expands it and does a lot more with it. Here it just uses one little gag and even does something a little different with it too. So Tweety hides underneath the chicken reports that Sylvester's hand is there. The rooster being all upset, he goes for a wind up, but it ends up hitting the other cat's hand. So, for a gag, it's
yeah,
funny.
we can even see a little bit of Sylvester kind of observing what's about to happen with the bat, and he gets hit with the brick, so he has to give up anyway, and then the other cat gets hit. It's not necessarily the best executed gag because it's not done with a lot of power, the off-screen gag, but you still have your imagination there, because the cat springs up.
And then the next bit, which I thought was hilarious, it's just so simple, it's got a lot of dry brush effects to help sell it, is when this other cat just grabs Sylvester by the tail and just smacks him onto the ground a few times. Like, just so basic and yet so good. The chase continues. The other cat notices Tweety, chases him into the house, which Sylvester again helps him and even locks up the house as well. I guess Sylvester must be really annoyed at having to look after Tweety.
Yeah,
in
this is
case.
where Tweety seems to understand that Sylvester's actually just trying to help him, and Sylvester explains he just doesn't want to have pizzicatos played on him.
Say, you're wearing a nice pretty cat.
Listen, Buster, I'm not a nice pussycat. I just don't relish the idea of having pizzicatos played on me in some string section.
Yeah, so it's not exactly a selfless act, it's more of a selfish act because he just doesn't want to go to the violin factory. And then in the last bit with the other cat, we see another reuse of an idea, which involves the TNT being tied up to a balloon.
Yeah, this is similar to A Mouse Divided.
There's even a similar idea in one of the Goofy Gophers
I think it falls down in that one.
Involving Elmer. Yeah, so they keep on reusing the same idea, which again, nothing wrong with that. I like how it's executed here, especially with the twist where the other cat thinks, oh yeah, the dynamite's gone, but then as with all helium balloons, they eventually lose their power and go to the ground, so that's what it does here. And yeah, it blows up the cat, which, yeah, I don't think Granny would be happy with the damage to that chimney, though.
Speaking of Granny, she's back.
Yes, she comes back at the worst possible time when Sylvester all this time was helping Tweety.
Yeah, and I think that also sort of elevates it. This very well-staged ending where after Sylvester realizes there's no way he can explain what happened, he accepts his fate.
And ends up going into the violin case, and yeah, we end right there.
That end gag is sort of what separates Freleng from other people of this period, where he isn't phoning it in. He still knows he has to make people laugh, and he's doing it really well. He just isn't doing anything new, but he's still executing what he does know very well.
Exactly. And I think, yeah, it all works pretty well here. With this short, I was entertained, and again, I hadn't seen this one before, and I was pleasantly surprised. It's not exactly the greatest Sylvester and Tweety. By this point, they're into a rhythm, a routine, if you will, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And I was entertained. This one gets 8.5 out of 10. Yeah, I know some might think it's a bit higher than maybe what they would have given it, but honestly, I found myself laughing at the whole thing, and I was pleasantly surprised. So yeah, I stand by that score.
I'm gonna give it an 8. This one was better in my memory, but I still really like it. It isn't phoned in as so many other cartoons. It's still very funny.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely one that I hope goes to physical media at some point soon. And yeah, it was just a whole lot of fun. But that will do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and until next time, take care.
That's all, folks.
What's the use? She'd never believe me.